Hi everyone. Good morning. It's another lovely Thursday. How are we doing this morning? Yeah, or afternoon anyway. I hope your day has been going fine. I hope your day has been going well. Okay, so today we're going to have a new topic. So we're going to be dealing with mathematics today, and we're going to have a new topic actually for the seniors in the house. So we're going to be doing a new topic today. But before we move into our topic, I have something for you. Okay, mental math tricks. So I want us to just look at this trick. Now, I actually want us to look at a trick to multiply by 50. But before that, I want us to look at 5. I know multiplying by 5 is very easy for you guys. You know, you guys are bosses and all. But let's just look at it together. Now, I don't know if some of you know this, but if you don't, you can learn it. To multiply any number by 5, okay? Especially when you are dealing with very big numbers, larger numbers now, and you want to do it in your head, okay? And you want to multiply this number by 5. You can just multiply it by 10 and then cut it in half. That's you divide it by 2. Do you understand? So you can just multiply by 10 and divide by 2. Okay, so look at this example now. 5 times 14, we want to multiply by 5 by 14. Okay, so instead of going through the usual routes and then doing 5 times 4, 5 times 1, and like that, we can do 10 first and then divide by 2. So let me show you. So you can do 10 times 14 instead, which is easier because we all know that when we multiply by 10, all we need to do is add a 0 behind the number in question. Then we have 140 in this case. So 140 divided by 2 is so easy. All you need to do is now get your answer 70. Okay? So sometimes, especially when you're dealing with very big numbers, it might be faster to use this method. So just something that you should know. Okay? So just try it out. If you like it, you can use it. That's the thing about tricks. You don't always have to use them. If you don't like them, you can leave them. Okay? But let's look at 50 now. What if you want to multiply a very big number, very big number by 50? What do you do? And it's just something that is a part of your daily calculation or a part of your daily math. What do you do? So to multiply a number by 50, simply multiply by 100 now and cut in half. Okay, let's see. So for example, we have, let's just use a simple one, 75 times 50, 50 times 75. Okay, the usual way would be, okay, use 0 to multiply 75 first, you use 5, and then you start your addition. But you can just do 75 times 100, okay, and divide by 2. So when you do 100 times 75, that gives you 7,500. And then if you divide that by 2, you get 3,750. So that's a fun trick that you can use, you know, if you just want to be faster. In times when you're dealing with speed and it's not just about accuracy, you can use some tricks, okay? So that's that for our segment of on mental math tricks. Let's go to our topic for today, okay? So guess what? We're doing quadratic equations. Okay, I don't really know how many of us like this topic, but I know some of us don't. Some of us don't. But it's a simple one and it's an interesting one. Now, today we're going to be going on a long journey. So if you have maybe a can of malt or a bottle of Sprite or Fanta, you can put it beside you, you know, because we're going on a very long journey today. So just try to follow me and do not give up, okay? It's easy. So we're going to start with this now. First of all, we need to know what quadratic equations are. We have an idea what equations are, right? Simple, normal linear equations like 2x plus 5 equals to 0 and 5x plus 3 equals 14. Those are linear equations, right? Okay, that's a different topic. Now, quadratic equations are totally different from linear equations, okay? So what are they? Now, quadratic equations are equations which can be expressed in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now, what you can see on your screen now is what we call the standard form for expressing quadratic equations. Sometimes you can see them expressed in another way, but this is the standard way quadratic equations are expressed, okay? And most times you would have to use this form to solve quadratic equations. Let's move. Now, take note that A, B, and C must be real numbers. You cannot have imaginary numbers like square root of -5. That's not a quadratic equation, okay? So A, B, and C must be real numbers, okay? They must be real numbers. And A must not be 0. So B can be 0, C can be 0, but A must not be 0, okay? If A is 0, and then what you're left with is a linear equation, okay? So A must not be 0. And you shouldn't have the higher powers like cube, raised to the power of 4. By the time you start going into that, you're talking about larger polynomials now. So those are not quadratic equations, okay? Now, let's move on. Let's move on. Now, what are the methods that we can use to solve these equations? That's what we want to discuss today, actually. What are the methods we can use? We're not able to cover all of them, but we'll try to do as many as we can, okay? So what are these methods that we can use to solve these equations, okay? So let's look at them. Number one, there's something we call factorization. I like factorization. It's one of the simplest methods, actually. I think I like easy things too, but sometimes it's good to also do the hard things because they bring you great reward. Okay, so factorization is very easy, but there's a problem. Factorization doesn't always work because there are some quadratic equations that you just can't find factors for. Okay, so you have to know more than factorization. Now, there's a method we call completing the square method. Most of my kids don't like this method. All the students I have taught, most of them don't like it. But it's easy. When I really sit down and I tell them, okay, this is how you can actually solve this, they realize that it's very easy. The only thing is the longest method. It's one of the longest, actually, the longest anyway. Okay, but completing the square method is good because it helps you to solve equations that you cannot factorize. Okay. Now, number 3, we have this one, the quadratic formula. Nice, I love this because I love formulas. Anyway, so quadratic formula is very easy. All you need to know is the formula. Once you know the formula, you can solve any quadratic equation. Now, the progression for solving quadratic equations is that you should always try to use factorization because it's the easiest. Always try to factorize first. Now, when you see that you cannot factorize, or maybe at that point you can't think about what factors to use, the next option should be the quadratic formula. Don't use completing the square method because it's quite long. If you're trying to save time, use the quadratic formula. But there's a but. You might be instructed to use the completing the square method. If you then decide to use the quadratic formula or factorization, you get it wrong. You might just get answers for the final marks for the final answer, but you miss all the marks for the steps. So just be very careful. If it's specified that you should use a particular method, use that. But if not, start with factorization. Then if it doesn't work, use the quadratic formula. The last one is the graphical solution. It's also quite nice. It involves plotting a graph, you plot the curve, and all that. So let's see how far we can go today. Okay, so let's start with number 1, factorization. Okay, factorization. So before, I'll tell you everything step by step, but let's just move on. So we have x squared minus 3x plus 2. This is a quadratic equation, right? X squared minus 3x plus 2 equals to 0. Now, let's assume that the 2 had been on the other side. Maybe x squared minus 3x equals to minus 2. You would have to bring it back to the standard form of expression before you begin to solve. So we have x squared minus 3x plus 2 here now. Okay, what do we do? What do we do? That's the first question. When you face a problem, ask yourself, what do we do? And what do I do? Now, what do? You can see I use different colors. I did that on purpose. Now we're going to take the colors in red, the 2 in red, and multiply them together. That's the first term and the third term on the left in red, and multiply them together. So this is what we are going to do, and we'll get what here? 2 times x squared will give us 2x squared. Okay? We're going to get 2x squared here. Now, that's step 1. Just follow me. That's step 1. Step 2, you're going to ask yourself, I need 2 factors now. What are the factors of 2x squared? That when I add these factors together, they would also give me the one in purple, the minus 3x. So I want factors of 2. That when I add those 2 factors together, they must give me minus 3. So let's look at the factors of 2. Of course, we know that without the signs, the factors of 2 are 1 and 2, right? Because 2 is a prime number. Okay, so this is an easy one. So 1 and 2. But if we just assume that, okay, it's plus 1 and plus 2, that won't give us minus 3 when we add together, right? So think. You can write it all down in a rough book and just try to figure it out. Okay, what will give me minus 3? But if you do that thinking very well, you would know that what will give you minus 3, the 2 factors that will give you minus 3 will be minus 1 and minus 2. So minus 1x and minus 2x are two factors. Okay? If you can get this step in factorization, that's the key to everything. That's the key to everything. The key to everything is getting those two factors correctly. Once you can do that, you're good to go. That's the gold actually. That's the gold. So minus 1x minus 2x now. Okay, we've been able to get our two factors. Now you can see this minus 1x and minus 2x, but then you take those two factors and use them to replace minus 3x. So our new equation will look like this. So instead of minus 3x now, in purple, we now have minus 1x and minus 2x, okay? So we've replaced minus 3x. Okay, I know that, of course, you know minus 1x is the same thing as minus x, but I'm just putting the 1 here to make it a bit easier for you to understand. Okay, now, so the next step, follow me, the next step. The next step is you want to make these people family. You want to put them in families of 2. Oh, is there any family of 2? Well, sometimes the parents are just alone. So you want to put them in families of 2 or groups of 2. So you are going to do what we now call factorization. You're going to factorize, okay? So you're going to put x squared and minus 1x together, and you're going to check what is common to these two terms I just mentioned. So x is common, right? So that you bring out the x, and then you would have x into x minus 1. Okay, when you bring out the x, because you are dividing through the x in a way, x into x minus 1. Then you do the same thing for minus 2x and plus 2, okay? Now you bring out minus 2 because minus 2, there's a minus sign in front of in front of 2x. So you put the minus sign and you bring out 2, which is common to the two terms. So now, but since you brought out minus, okay, remember that you're factorizing. So the plus sign on before the 2, so you have minus 2x plus 2, that plus changes now to minus because you have brought out a factor of minus 2. Okay, so just remember that if you're going to be factorizing with minus, you need to change the sign, whatever sign is there, to the other sign. For example, if you have plus, you should change to minus. If you have minus, you should change to plus. Okay, so we have x into x minus 1 minus 2 into x minus 1. Now you can see that I put the two terms. I put 2 of the terms there in red, x minus 1 and x minus 1. Now, that's another key to factorization. The terms that you're going to get in your bracket must be the same. If they are not the same, then you've done something wrong. So you need to go back and check if they're not the same. So they must be the same. Now, once they are the same, you've hit the jackpots. So all you need to do now is pick only one. Pick one out of the two red terms, pick one. So you would have something like this, x minus 1. Then the terms in front of the brackets, okay, you pick them and put them together. So x minus 1 into x minus 2, okay? And that will be equal to 0. Now, if you were just asked to factorize, let's assume you were not asked to solve, there was no equal to 0, just said factorize, you could have stopped here. But they did not say just factorize, they said you should solve the equation. Now, how do we solve this now? Now, we are working by the premise which says that when you have two numbers multiplied together and you claim that they are 0, that their product is 0, then it is not possible except one of them is 0. Except either one of them is 0. For example, if I say A times B equals to 0, it means A equals to 0 or B equals to 0 or A and B are equal to 0. Okay, so that's the premise we are going to work on. We're going to work on to solve this question now. So we're going to pick each term and equate to 0. That's how we're going to solve. So this is the first term, x minus 1, first bracket actually, x minus 1. So x minus 1 equals to 0. Take minus 1 to the other side, then it becomes plus. So x equals to 1. Then we pick the second bracket. Okay, remember, our premise is that A and B, you equate A to 0, you equate B to 0. So equate the first bracket to 0, equate the second bracket to 0 also. So we have x minus 2 now equals to 0. We take minus 2 to the other side and it becomes x equals to 2. So if you want to combine this in, as a final answer and say, okay, this is my final answer, you need to say x equals to 1, comma 2. So this is how to express the solution to the quadratic equation. The quadratic equation must always have two roots, or something we call the, when you do the solution of this quadratic equations, we call those values you've obtained the roots of the equation. Okay, we'll go into that probably in quadratic equations too. We'll talk about the roots, how to manipulate the roots and all that. But let's continue. So let me give you another example of factorization. Now this is a different ball game. Now you can see expression is different. Okay, but it's the same thing we are going to apply here. So we have 3x squared plus 5x plus 2 equals 0. As usual, multiply the two terms in red, the first term and the last term, or the third term here on the left side. Now that gives us what? 6x squared. Then you ask yourself, what are the factors of 6? Factors of 6 is that when I multiply them together, of course, will give me 6, and then when I add them together, will give me 5x. That's the one in purple now. So you're thinking, okay, the factors of 6 are 1, we have 1, 2, 3, and 6. It's not a prime number. 1, 2, 3, and 6. Okay, so if I pair 1 and 6, that should give me 6. But if I add 1 to 6, no, I won't get 5. Oh, that's not correct. Then you think again, okay, 2 times 3 should give me 6. Okay, so if I add 2 plus 3, voila, it gives me 5. So that's how you think, that's how you process the thoughts in your head. But remember that if it's a negative, it's a different ball game entirely. Okay, so let's look at this. So 6x squared now, we have 2x and 3x, 2 and 3. Okay, so now the 2x and 3x are going to replace 5x. So we're going to say goodbye to 5x and we're going to replace with 2x and 3x. Okay, same procedure here. We're going to group them in families of 2, or put them in groups of 2, and then we factorize. So we check the first two, 3x squared plus 2x. There's no common number apart from 1 anyway. But x is common, so we can bring out x. So if we bring out x, we have x into 3x plus 2. Then for the last two terms, 3x and 2, there's no common number, but 1 is common to any two expressions. So 1, we bring out 1 and we leave the expression the way it is. So 1 into 3x plus 2. Now you can notice I use the same color for the two brackets, okay? Because like I said, the two brackets must have the same, must contain the same terms. If not, you need to start all over again. You might have made a mistake somewhere, okay? So like I said, you pick one of the two brackets, you pick one, and then you combine the terms outside the brackets. So you have 3x plus 2 into x plus 1, okay, equals to 0. And our premise is that we need to equate each bracket to 0. So let's start with the first bracket. So 3x plus 2 equals to 0. And then x, if you take 2 to the other side, it becomes minus 2. Divide both sides by 3, so x equals to minus 2 over 3. And then x plus 1 equals 0. You take 1 to the other side, it becomes minus, and then x equals minus 1. So if you're going to write this out, you should write x equals to minus 2 over 3, comma, minus 1. That's your answer, your final answer. So that's factorization. It's a simple one once you are familiar with factors of numbers and you know how to identify these factors of numbers, okay? So let's look at this. Now, this is not a method for solving, it's a method anyway, but it's not among the ones I listed, but I need you to know this so that it can help you with the next method. Now, perfect squares, they are quadratic equations that we call perfect squares. I'll tell you why we call them perfect squares. First of all, look at that formula. A plus b all squared equals to a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. This formula should be treated in junior JSS 3. I don't know if you did that, but no problem. So let's just look at this together and see how to apply it to quadratic equations. Now, when you have a quadratic equation, for example, x squared plus 12x plus 36 equals to 0. Now, how do I know? I'm going to tell you that I put it to you that this quadratic equation is a perfect square. But how do I know that it's a perfect square? Let me show you how it's a perfect square. So we're going to compare it to a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Let's do that. So we have a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, we're going to compare. Now, if we compare, we can see that a and x are going to be equal. So A equals to X. Then B, if we're comparing B squared to 36, it means B is the square root of 36. Okay, so B is 6, right? Now, if we now want to derive 2AB, since we said our A is X and our B is 6, our 2AB in this case now is going to be 2 times X times 6. Okay, that will give us 12X. So now we said A is X and B is, we were able to get B as 6. And our 2AB also gave us 12X. So you can see that they are perfectly compatible. A squared plus 2AB plus B squared can be compared fully and completely with X squared plus 12X plus 36. Okay, so that's how we know that it's a perfect square. So if we're able to state that, okay, this equation is a perfect square, then we don't need to even solve, and we don't need to start doing any further solution. All we just need to do is use that formula. So in this case now, it simply means that x squared plus 12x plus 36 is equal to x plus 6 all square. Remember that we are using the formula a plus b all square equals to a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So it's equal to x squared, x plus 6 all square. Okay, now this also applies to another case where you have minus. So a minus b all square is also the same thing as a square minus 2ab plus b square. Okay, all right, now let's look at this. X squared minus 14x plus 49 equals to 0. I'm going to tell you now that this is a perfect square also. How do I know it's a perfect square? Let's compare it to what we have. We have a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So we're going to compare. We can see that a and x will be equal. If we compare those two together, then b squared is 49. So b will be square root of 49, which is 7. Okay, so a is x, b is 7. Now, to also compare 2ab and 14x and see if they're the same, we can say, okay, a is x, b is 7, so 2ab becomes 2 times x times 7, which gives us 14x. So you can see it's a perfect square. It's a perfect square. So if we can identify that this is a perfect square, then we don't need to, start trying to solve using any other method. We can just use the formula a minus b all square. So that will be x minus 7 all square. Now, this only applies for perfect squares. Not all quadratic equations are perfect squares. So the responsibility is now yours to check if it's a perfect square or not. Okay? All right, now I'll show you why we had to do it as we move on. So look at this. This is the next method, completing the square method. So we want to solve x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals to 0 using completing the square method. How do we do this? It's easy. Just follow me. It's easy. Now, let's look at this together. So our solution. Now, the first thing you need to check is what is the coefficient of x squared? You know the meaning of the word coefficient? Coefficient means the value that's beside that particular number and that particular letter. For example, in this case, it's x squared we are looking at. So what is the coefficient of x squared? Now, in this case, the coefficient of x squared is 1 because, there's no other number beside x squared. Now, in a case where the coefficient is not 1, you have to make it 1. You have to make it 1, okay? So, but in this case, we can go straight and we can solve. So how do we solve this? First step, take the third term, that's the C, the constant term, take it to the other side. We're not going to be dealing with it on the left side. Take it to the other side. So this is what we're going to get first. X squared plus 4x equals to minus 3. Okay, follow me. So once you've done that, you've taken it to the other side, okay? Now we're trying to find the magic number. I usually call this number the magic number. If we can find this magic number, then we can solve the equation. But if we cannot find this magic number, if we make a mistake or we're not careful, then we won't be able to solve the equation. Okay, so how do we find this magic number? That's what you're probably asking. Okay, now what's the coefficient of x? The coefficient of x is the number beside x, right? Okay, and I think that number here is 4. Okay, so bring down 4. Just follow me, bring down 4. Then when you bring down 4, you're going to divide it by 2 and you're going to square it. That's how to get the magic number. Get the coefficient of x, which is 4 in our case, bring it down. divide it by 2 and then square it. Divide it by 2 and then square it. So in this case, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and if we square 2, we're going to get 4. So 4 is our magic number. I put it in bold, in a bold letter for you to see it. 4 is our magic number. Now, what are we going to do with this magic number? Okay, we're going to use it. We're going to use it, sensibly. We're going to apply it to both sides. We're going to add it to both sides. Balance is very important. So we're going to add. Let me say add. We're going to add this magic number to both sides. So let's go back to our x squared plus 4x. So x squared plus 4x plus 4 will now be equal to minus 3 plus 4. Okay? Now, that gives us x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 1. Minus 3 plus 4 is 1. Now, this is why I had to show you perfect squares. Okay? So x squared plus 4x plus 4 is a perfect square now. Now that we have completed the square. Okay? So that's why it's called completing the square. You want to make it into a perfect square. Do you see the logic? We want the left-hand side to be a perfect square so that we don't have to stress ourselves to do anything. All we just have to do is, use that formula. So in this case now, x squared plus 4x plus 4 is now a perfect square. So all we need to do now is find out which value is our a and which value is our b. We're going to do a plus b all squared. But let me now tell you that you don't even need to stress yourself at all. We're trying to find the magic number. Now, before we got to the magic number, we divided 4 by 2, right? Before we squared it. When we divided by 4 by 2, we got 2, okay? Now, that 2 that you squared is always going to be the answer here for the perfect square. So all you just need to do is x plus 2 all squared. So that's 2. That's another way to actually do it, even if you don't want to use the perfect square method. So x plus 2 all square is equal to 1 now. X plus 2 all square is equal to 1. Now, if we're able to get to this point, that's the basic, the other steps before this point are the real hard work. Okay, so once you get to this step, all you need to do is find the square root of both sides. So if you find the square root of the left side, you're left with x plus 2. And then this is another key thing. You need to know that when you're finding square root, actually, the square root of any number whatsoever has 2 components. A positive component and a negative component. For example, if I say square root of 4, it's actually plus 2 and minus 2. We are used to just taking the positive, positive component because that's what we usually need most times. But that doesn't negate the fact that it actually has 2 components, which are the positive one and the negative one. So in this method, you have to indicate plus or minus when you're finding square root. So plus or minus square root of 1 now. Okay, I hope you're not getting tired. If you have malt, you can drink it now. Well, I don't have a bottle of malt by my side, but if you have one, you can just, use it to step down what you've learned so far. So x plus 2 equals to plus or minus square root of 1. Okay. Square root of 1, of course, is 1, Square root of 1 is 1. So you take 2 to the other side, it becomes minus 2 plus or minus 1 now, okay? Now, like I said, the quadratic equation always has 2 answers. So we can now split this into minus 2 plus 1 and minus 2 minus 1. It's either plus or minus 1. So plus and then minus, we split it. Now, this gives us x equals to minus 1, comma, minus 3. Or you can write it as minus 3, comma, minus 1 anyway. Okay, so that's completing the square method. That's the first example. Let me give you another one. Now, this one is a little more complicated. So look at this. Now, our question is 4x squared minus 12x minus 7 equals to 0. Okay, what was the first step? The first step is we should take minus 7 to the other side, right? And then to give us 4x squared minus 12x equals 7, right? No, wrong. The first step is to check the coefficient of x squared. I said it before. The first step is to check the coefficient of x squared. What's the coefficient of x squared? 4. Now, it's not 1, so we need to get rid of, that 4. We need to make it 1. So we're going to divide every term in that equation by 4. So by the time we divide 2 by 4, we should have x squared minus 3x minus 7 over 4. minus 7 over 4. Now, what happens after that? What do we do next after that? Now, the next thing is to now take 7 over 4, minus 7 over 4 to the other side. So this becomes x squared minus 3x equals 7 over 4. From here, what's the next thing? We're looking for the magic number. Let's look for it. The magic number. So what's going to be the magic number here? First of all, what is the coefficient of x? Minus 3 in this case, minus 3. So you're going to bring it down minus 3, divide it by 2 and square it. Look at this. So minus 3 over 2 all square. Of course, when you square a minus, it becomes plus. So minus 3 over 2 all square is 9 over 4. So 9 over 4 is our magic number. So 9 over 4 is our magic number. So what do we do with this magic number? We're going to add that magic number to both sides. Balance is important. So we have x squared minus 3x plus 9 over 4 equals 7 over 4 plus 9 over 4. That becomes, okay, 7 plus 9 is 16 over 4. So that becomes, now, we have, okay. So, but there's something I told you before. What was that? Okay, so what did I tell you? I said that if you are familiar with the perfect square, the perfect square method, you just need to go straight and get your answer for the left hand side. But I also told you that once you want, in the procedure for getting the magic number, you're going to divide minus 3 by 2. Now that minus 3 over 2 will be your answer when you are doing when you're solving the left hand side. So automatically your x squared minus 3x plus 9 over 4 becomes x minus 3 over 2 all square. Now that is equal to 16 over 4, which is equal to 4. So from here, what you need to do now is find the square root of both sides, like we said. So we have x minus 3 equals to plus or minus square root of 4. That becomes x equals to 3 over 2 plus or minus 2. Then we can separate, we can split. So we have x equals to 3 over 2 plus 2 and x equals to 3 over 2 minus 2. So 3 over 2 plus 2, that will give us 7 over 2, and 3 over 2 minus 2 will give us minus 1 over 2. So that's that for completing the square method. Okay, it's not difficult, it's just a bit long, it's lengthy. So you can choose this, you should always choose this method as a last resort, or when it is specified that you must use it. So try to learn it properly, okay? Now the quadratic formula, we also call this the almighty formula. I don't know what's so almighty about this formula up till today. It's a good formula anyway, but what's so almighty in it? Everybody calls it the almighty formula. Okay, yeah, for a quadratic equation, of the form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, the roots of the equation can be found using this formula, and that's what we now call the quadratic formula. Now, what's the formula? The formula is x equals to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, there's a common mistake people make. They say minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And then they don't put the minus b under they don't put the 2a under the minus b also. The 2a is underneath everything. So try not to make that mistake, okay? Try not to make that mistake. Put that formula in your head. When they wake you up at night and they say, oh, which name can I use? Bolu or Choma? Aisha, wake up. What is the formula for quadratic? What is the quadratic formula? Tell me now, I need it now. You need to be able to say x equals to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 equals to a. Wow, that's the formula. So put it in your head, try to be familiar with it. Now let's see how it works. How does it work? How does it work? Like I said, once you know the formula, you're good to go. So look at this quadratic equation, 2x squared minus 5x minus 3 equals to 0. I hope you guys are still following, okay? Don't worry, if you're getting tired, you can drink some water or you take a break and come back. So 2x squared minus 5x minus 3 equals 0. Now, we want to solve this, but before we can solve it, you must, for this particular quadratic formula, you must write down should I say, yeah, I've told you before, the standard form of expressing quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, you must write that down. Then underneath that, you write your own equation that you've been given, and then you compare. You must always do this. You must always do this to avoid errors. To avoid errors, because sometimes you're like, I already know what A is, I know what B is, I know what C is, you move on. And you might make a mistake, okay? So try to always do this. So now we now compare. A in this case is 2. We compare the two equations. You know how to compare. A is 2. Now B is not 5. B is minus 5, minus 5, minus 5. And C is also not 3. C is minus 3. Be careful with that. That's another place people make mistakes. Now, for the formula, you write that down. You write the formula down. Now, we are going to substitute. So, wherever you see B, you're going to put minus 5. Wherever you see A, you're going to put 2. And wherever you see C, you're going to put minus 3. So, that's what we're doing now. So, x equals to minus 5 plus or minus square root of minus 5 all square minus 4 into 2 into minus 3. Don't get overwhelmed. Just put brackets. I put a lot of brackets because sometimes when you don't put brackets, you make mistakes. You make mistakes. So always put enough brackets. But there's nothing difficult. Wherever you sit in the position for B, put a bracket. And then you can even use a pencil. Put a bracket. Erase B now and put minus 5. Okay? In the position for A, put a bracket there. Erase A. That's after you've written the formula, you can write it 2 times and then do what I'm saying. Put a bracket for A and erase A and then replace A with 2. In the position for C, put a bracket, erase C, okay, and then write minus 3 there, okay, and then you get your answer, okay. Okay, so we have minus 5 plus or minus square root of minus 5 all square minus 4 into 2 into minus 3 over 2 into 2. So if we simplify, minus times minus 5 gives us plus 5. So that's just 5. Now, minus 5 all square is 25. Okay, minus 5 all square is 25. Now, for the next part is minus 4 into 2 into minus 3. So take account of the signs first. Let's take account of the signs first. There's a minus in the middle and there's a minus in front of 3, right? So that minus in the middle times the minus in front of 3 becomes a plus sign. That's another thing you need to take account of. The signs, okay? The signs. If there's no minus in the terms, then it will still be a minus. But there's a minus in front of 3, so the sign has to change to plus, okay? So we have plus, and 4 times 2 is 8, times 3 is 24, okay? So that's 25 plus 24 over 4, all right? So now, we now have 5 plus or minus square root of 49 over 4. Square root of 49 is an easy one, so x equals to 5 plus 7 over 4, and we split it now, 5 into plus and minus. So 5 plus 7 over 4 and 5 minus 7 over 4. So this gives us 12 over 4 and minus 2 over 4, which would give us x is 3 and minus 1 over 2. So that's that. That's that. Let's look at another example, something a bit more different. That's different from what we have. Now, the same thing applies. You need to write out the standard form for quadratic equations. Don't just say, I know what A is, I know what B is, I know what C is, and just start. Okay, maybe after a while, but I don't even advise that after a while you should just go straight up. Still write it out, it won't cost you anything. So write x squared minus 2x minus 2 equals to 0. So you compare, A is 1. I think because you can see that there's no number beside x squared. So A is 1, B is not 2, B is minus 2 here, and then C is also minus 2 here. So then we can now write out the formula, okay? X equals to minus B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC over 2A. Okay, so that gives us our formula. Then you substitute, like I said, you can write this formula in 2 places. Then put a lot of brackets, and then you can just erase. So wherever you see B, you can just erase B and put minus 2. Wherever you see A, you can just erase A and put 1. And wherever you see C, you can just erase C and put minus 2, if you want to do it that way. So we would have something like this. Minus 2 plus or minus square root of minus 2 all square minus 4 into 1 into minus 2, okay, over 2 into 1. There's nothing difficult here. Don't think it's so, how is it so large? It's not so large. You can write out the equation in 2 places if that's an easier method for you. And then when you write it out on the second line, put a lot of brackets first. And then whenever you see those letters, just erase them. You can use a pencil, erase them, and then use, replace with what should be there. So by the time we do simplify this, minus 2 gives us, 2, and then minus 2 all square gives us 4. Now, take note again. We have minus 4 times 1 times minus 2, right? But we have a minus in the middle and a minus in front of 2. So that gives us plus. Now, be very careful about that. Now, 4 times 1 is 4 times 2 is 8. Okay? So you have 2 plus or minus square root of 4 plus 8 all over 2. Okay? So we can move on and say 2 plus or minus square root of 12 over 2. But 12 is not a perfect square. So you cannot find the complete square root of 12. But we can leave it in surd form if we want to. We can just say, okay, square root of 12 is square root of 4 times 3. So that becomes 2 root 3. Okay? So square root of, or we can do that along the way anyway, but let's split it first. So we have 2 plus root 12 over 2 and 2 minus root 12 over 2. So you can see it becomes 2 plus 2 root 3 over 2 and 2 minus 2 root 3 over 2. Okay? But you can decide, since it's mathematics, you can decide to use a calculator and get the value of, root 12. That's also acceptable. Your answer will now be in decimal form. But sometimes if it's an OBJ question, you need to see the answers in the answers you've been given so that you know which form to leave it in. So in this case now, we can now use 2 to divide, each of the terms, the 2 terms. So this will now leave us with 1 plus 3 and 1 minus root 3. So that's our answer for this second example. Okay? All right. So we still have so many things of quadratic equations we've not covered. We still need to talk about how to derive a quadratic equation when you have been given the roots, graphical solution, and so many other things. So in our next quadratic equation class, we'll talk about those things. But I want you to do something for me. Now, do you know that the quadratic formula is not abstract? It's not something that was just, brought down from the moon or from Mars. You can actually get the formula on your own, and it will be fun if you get it. You'll be happy. So try it out. That's what I want you to do. Can you try to derive it? It's not compulsory. If you can't get it, no problem. But if you're able to get it, give me feedback. Let me know if you're able to get it. It's fun. It's something you can try. So try to derive the quadratic formula from the general form ax squared plus bx plus c. Remember the steps for completing the square. So you're going to use completing the square method. Okay? So you use the completing the square method, but you're not dealing with values now. You're dealing with a, b, c as it is. So ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Try deriving the quadratic formula and see if you can get it using completing the square method. It's fun. It will be fun if you try. So if you're able to get it, let me know in the comment section, give me feedback whether you're able to get it or not. And also you can visit quizzes.com. It's a site where you have so many subjects anyway, but you can play a lot of games on those subjects. So I want you to try it out for math. Go to quizzes.com, try to search for quadratic equations and see how far you can go and see what you can solve. See if you're good enough to get it now after watching the class. Okay, so remember, if you have any questions that you want to ask or something that isn't clear to you, or comments or contributions, or things you want me to explain further, you can tell me in the comment section. Okay, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates and more classes. So I'll see you again next week for mathematics again, senior guys and girls. So have a lovely day. Bye.